Hello, and welcome to the Girls Can Code Hangout on Air. Thank you to everyone who's joining us today. I'd like to introduce you to Tara Linney, who is currently the Instructional Technology Coach at Richland School District 88A in Crest Hill, Illinois. She's worked in education for 5 years and recently spent 2 of those years working as a technology teacher turned EdTech coordinator at an all-girls school in Washington, D.C. In the last few years, Linney has become fascinated by the impact that learning how to code has had on students. She is best known for linking coding activities to the Common Core and supporting movements to get more girls into the coding world. During the Hangout, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask the presenters, then please put them in the comments section on the YouTube or Google Plus page. This presentation will be recorded for later viewing. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Tara Linney.
All right. People, it's time to shatter this glass ceiling. Today we're going to be talking about three things. Number one is getting more women into the programming field by getting to our girls sooner. Number two is going to be Google's Made with Code and how that came about. And number three is going to be a variety of programs and resources and projects to get more girls interested in coding. All right. So, thing number one. Currently, there are not that many women in the computer programming world, and this all kind of traces back to 1984. So let's do a quick screen share here. So for those of you who are familiar with NPR, back in October, I believe, they had this story of women in computer science. And as you can see from the graph, right here around 1984, that was the peak. Well, from then on, everything kind of went downhill. And when we start to wonder about what happened during this time, we can look to the media. So there were things like the first personal computers were being sold, and they were being sold to boys. Then we had popular movies like in 1984 when Revenge of the Nerds came out. That was all about boys being geeky with computers and girls being nothing more than the prize or the arm candy. Same thing in Weird Science in 1985. So the media has done a really crazy job of depicting girls as nothing more than eye candy and depicting boys as the ones who are smart, the ones who have the brains, the ones who are able to make things with technology. So that being said, we are going to shift gears now to Lucy, who can offer us some insight, some more like personal insight as far as what was happening in 1984.
Hi, Tara. Thanks for having me here. Having spent about 30 years in K-12 education in Vermont, I can honestly say this is one area we really haven't made many gains on. As a matter of fact, as you just saw, we've decreased the number of women involved in high-tech fields. I remember when I used to teach computer tech programs in Vermont. Even though my classroom had almost 50% girls, that was somewhat unusual. And in the first 10 years of that classroom, I never saw a single girl walk through the computer science classroom next door. I tried as I may to try to convince all my students to take computer science. The boys took my advice, but the girls didn't. It's really hard to convince a girl to go into a computer science class when the image that they see there does not show them or include anyone who looks like them in that environment. I'll never forget the satisfaction that I had when one of my mentees came in to me and said, "Mr. Labriere, I signed up for computer science next year. I had an opening in my classroom." I was so excited, but that excitement was really short-lived when I saw the experience she had. It was a horrible experience. Not only did that girl not have a peer group that she was with, but she lost her voice. There was just no connection for her. The environment was not great. Her self-esteem deteriorated. But fortunately, there's been a lot of research done since those early 80s when this happened, and I think that we've learned a lot more about creating a positive environment for both boys and girls, and Google has done a lot to contribute to that research.
So, and speaking of the change that's happened in the last 30 years, many of you might remember last May, Google published their employment report, and let's go ahead and do a quick share of that. So, in their employment report, they noted that 30% of their employees were women and 70% were men. That's still a huge disparity between the two genders. So in order to address this, major, major, major imbalance. What Google did was in June of last year, they created a program called Made with Code, which brings us to point number 2. So Google's Made with Code came as a way to inspire girls and to reach girls based on what their interests were to get them involved in coding. So let's watch this short video. This site right here is just www.madewithcode.com. And let's do this. Would help if there's volume. Hold on.
The world is made with tiny bits, with invisible stuff and weightless things. The world is made with DNA, drawn together into tigers and cathedrals and snow cones. The world is made with bits of language, letters and spaces and numbers, organizing nations and brunch and love. The world is made with you, unreplicable, particular you,
who are made with tiny bits and words strung together, you whose effect can be enormous, life-changing, history-making, world-better-making.
The code to change is also made with tiny bits and bytes drawn together. To dig wells, to share a joke with millions, to get directions. You are a girl who understands bits exist to be assembled.
And when you learn to code, you can assemble anything that you see missing.
And in so doing, you will fix something,
Or change something.
or invent something.
Or run something.
And maybe that's how you will play your bit in this world.
So from this video, this gives girls the opportunity just to have the door open, just to have their eyes open to see what can be made when you learn how to code. Once the video concludes, you have 3 different options. You have code a project, meet a mentor, or why coding is kind of a big deal. So we'll talk about coding a project in just a little while, but for right now, we're going to focus on meeting a mentor. So in order to hit on that inspiration, Google put together a whole bunch of great people. So you have women and girls who've made a difference in the world by learning how to code and creating really great things. Down here, you have Danielle Feinberg, who works for Pixar, and she demonstrates how she can get the animated characters to light up. You have people who dance with code. You have people who are making major differences. Now, these are the mentors. These are what girls would want to aspire to be like. The really, really cool part, and the thing that kind of sets Made with Code apart, is that there's also a section for makers. Now, the makers are basically girls who are in school currently, young girls who might even be some of our students. And these offer a lot of videos and kind of windows into what these young girls have been able to do and what they've been able to make by learning how to code. You've got the Epichica Squad here, who is cleaning up the graffiti in their neighborhood, all through coding an app. I mean, it's amazing what girls can do when they learn how to code. So, in addition, to kind of take a look at a closer look at some of these resources, I've put together this thing called ThingLink. For those of you who are not too familiar with ThingLink, if you move your mouse around on a screen, so it works with like laptop and desktop computers, then you can hover over the different points that are connected to the pictures to see what girls in the industry have made with code. So girls can find what their interest is, and maybe their interest is fashion, and then they can look at Maddie Maxey talking about how she combined her interest of fashion with her interest of coding, which is awesome. Then you have other people here like Lindsay Scott, who's a supermodel and an app developer. You've got people who are in the medical field who are using coding. You've got people who are, these girls are part of the Technovation Challenge, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. And they created an app to find healthy drinking water. So there's a lot of opportunities that girls have when their eyes are opened up to coding. All right. So what do you say? Let's look at some of the projects that Made with Code offers. So on the Made with Code site, if you click on projects, then you have a link to all of these things that are broken up based on ability level. You've got everything from advanced to intermediate to beginner, things that relate to dance and music and the arts. A lot of girls have a really, really good time making the Yeti dance. What we're going to do today is work on the garden robot. All right, so with the garden robot, what the objective is here is to have the garden robot pump water into each one of the pots until the pot is full. Well, by looking at this picture, we can easily gauge that when it's at 1, it's half full. When it's at 2, it's all the way full. So what girls would do, they would click and drag over the robot. Then their first block would be the repeat block, because they need to repeat a process for as many times as there are pots, and there are 4 pots. So then they scroll down and they grab a variable. So they repeat the process 4 times. Now, what's the process? Well, if the pot needs water, they're going to add water 1 time. Then, after the conditional, which is the if block, they're going to have the robot is going to move right. Now, at the very end here, it's going to repeat these steps 4 times. At the very end here, this last pot needs 2 pumps of water. So, after the repeat block, you add the variable and then water. What I really like about this program is how slow everything goes, because you can actually see the blocks on the left-hand side light up as the robot works. What this also does is it teaches girls iteration. So if they get it wrong, it has them go back and try again. And in education, we really don't iterate as much as we probably should to get our students ready for the real world. And the last one. So when girls are learning how to code and when they're using the Made with Code resources, they can see their progress in real time. If they make a mistake, it would have them go back and try it again, which is iteration. So now we're going to take a look at some additional resources. Lucy, can you share with us some of the additional Google resources that are out there as a level up activity?
I absolutely can. And we are only got a couple minutes, so I'll just speak to them. And one of them is the CS First curriculum. The CS First curriculum is an amazing curriculum that was developed by Google. It is free, and it was developed by both teachers and computer scientists at Google. It targets ages 9 through 14. It uses Scratch, and it's everything anybody could do to either run a club after school or an enrichment activity within school. Bring it right into your curriculum. All the lessons are made, the activities are there, and there's almost like no excuse. Even the advocacy, what you need to say to your principal, your school board, or your PTA, or your volunteers to try to make this happen are all there. A couple other places you might want to look is Google has been involved in the discussion about algorithms and what it takes to think in computational terms. That's not just a computer science class. That is how you put patterns and algorithms in social studies and in language arts, in math, in science. There's years of research and resources on Google's computational thinking website. I think, Tara, you have that in the resources?
Yes.
Great. And what's the most recent project is their computer science camps for high school seniors. If you go take a look at Google's computer science camps, you're going to see something you're not going to see in any other computer science camps. It is at least 50% girls. Girls see themselves in the pictures. And how amazing would it be to spend your first semester between your senior year to your college year at Google headquarters, at Google's computer science camp. So they can see themselves in the picture, and that's very unusual for a computer science camp.
All right, so we have one question via Kim. Yes. So what grade level would you use this for? So with the Made with Code resources, you can really use it for elementary and middle school, I would say. It's a great entry level into block-based coding and how that works. I've used it with as young as kindergarten with an assistant. And so, yeah, definitely elementary. So to kind of conclude, think of it this way. If we're looking to shatter glass ceilings, then it's important that we're equipping girls with the tools to do so. And learning how to code is a step forward, which is a step in the right direction for our girls. Thank you so much for tuning in. There will be a recording of this live broadcast tomorrow, and thank you.